get started. Welcome to Mobile Rage. My name is Lori Olson. My company is the Windex Group. I'm an independent contractor, and I've been using Rails since 2005, around version 0.13. Definitely, can't hear? Okay, how about now? Okay, thank you. Okay, so I've been using Rails since about 2005 and about version 0.13, I think. That was a long time ago. I'm from Calgary, so it's probably not too surprising that most of the work I've been doing is in the oil and gas area. So when we're talking about mobile, though, I'll just give a little bit of my mobile gadget history, too. I've been using mobile gadgets since the days of Windows CE, if any of you remember that. I had a NEC Mobile Pro. That was such a cool little device when it came out. And after that, I progressed through the Palm devices and then the Trio smartphones. And then, of course, I moved on to the iPhones and iPads. So, mobile rage. We're going to cover off these topics about what is mobile rage, just to make sure that everybody thinks it's the same thing. Who experiences mobile rage? Why has it become such a serious problem? And I'll give you some strategies, techniques, and a few actual pieces of code that will help you fix some of it. So, starting, what exactly is mobile rage? It's that feeling of intense frustration that you get when you're trying to do something with a web application on your mobile device and it just doesn't work the way you want it to work, the way you expect it to work. Some people wouldn't call that rage. They might call it mobile frustration, mobile annoyance, mobile peeved. But I call it rage. So who experiences mobile rage? Well, it's yes, people raising hands, yes. It is the fastest growing segment of the web consumer market. It's the smartphone users, the tablet users. Maybe I should just say the iPad users, since that's where most of the tablets are. I'm not talking here about the dumb phone users, because, I mean, really, T9 predictive text is just, you know, so rage-worthy all on its own that anything else is just over the top. But we've gotten to a really interesting point here now where the number of smartphone devices being sold is exceeding the number of desktop and laptop computers combined. So your mobile market is growing in ridiculous leaps and bounds. And if you want some real solid numbers on that, overall, smartphone ownership in Canada is up 13% in the last 6 months. So more than 1/3 of Canadians actually own smartphones now. I don't know if it's a direct parallel for the States, but it's probably pretty close. And it's a market that you just can't afford to ignore. So why are things so bad? Well, how long has the web been around anyway? I know I built my first website for the company I was working for in late 1994. If any of you say you weren't born then, I'm going to hit you, okay? But really, how many websites have been around 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and they're still there because they work. They've been doing their job. Well, you know, Rails applications, people have been developing Rails applications for 8 years now. Mobile was just barely on people's radar 8 years ago. The iPhone didn't even exist except in Steve Jobs' secret little world, and nobody had any idea about things like the iPad. So how did we get here? How did we get to the point where mobile causes such rage? Well, I think that the answer for us Rails developers is pretty simple. You know, Rails developers only work on greenfield projects, right? They only develop new web applications. They don't work on, you know, supporting old applications. Okay, 8 years of Rails development. You cannot tell me that you guys don't support any of your older applications. How many people out here in the audience have to support a Rails application that was written more than, say, let's say 3 years ago, before the iPad actually came out? Yeah, about half. So it's really simple for greenfield applications now. You know, I know in the next talk we're going to be, they're going to be covering an awful lot of stuff about this, but everybody says now that the way to do it is to design your apps for mobile first. Think about mobile first, and then worry about your desktop representation after. That is a good place to start. I'd also recommend that you go back and say mobile last too, because after you've done your desktop stuff, you might have some more work to do on the mobile end of things. And of course, we have responsive design. So we have this perfect world where we can just use responsive design and have one app, and it just, you know, magically transforms itself according to the device that you're using. And, you know, everything's all rainbows and unicorns, right? Because it all works. Well, I don't think it is rainbows and unicorns, because otherwise we wouldn't have so many people with so much rage. So let's talk about what I've identified as some of the standard problem areas that people experience mobile rage in. These areas are just sort of a general classification. You know, there's lots more. I'm sure you guys can come up with some. But I classify them as landing, whether that's on your home page or people following links into your application. There's advertising, navigation around on your site, and finally, last but not least, forms. All of these areas have interesting, rage-worthy items. So starting with landing, what do people rage about when they land on your site? So, slow. Do people ever tell you that your application is slow? Because really, over the past couple of years, the percentage of users that expect applications to load just as quickly on their mobile device as it does on a desktop has increased from 58 to 71%. An even more scary statistic, the percentage of users who will bounce off of your site after waiting 5 seconds for the mobile site to load has increased from 20% 2 years ago to 74% last year. That's a really scary statistic. I know, you know, me, I'm in that 74%. If I'm clicking on a link to look at something, somebody posted to Twitter, and I count, just like, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Screw it, too slow, didn't wait. That's sort of like the too long, didn't read. Yeah, too slow, didn't wait. Now, this graphic right here actually was probably my inspiration for this talk, because it's a scary statistic. This is how many people react to slow load times on their mobile devices. 23% of them curse at their phone. How many of you? Come on, be honest. How many of you have cursed at your phone? Yeah, it's pretty close. Okay, 11% scream at their phone. You know what? I don't do that, but I know people who do. And 4% actually throw their phones. Yeah, my boss does that. So when you add it all up, that's almost 40% of people actually reacting with real, measurable rage to your page loading slowly. So that's not very good, and we should probably do something about that. So top of my list of things that make sites slow to load pretty much has to be all the JavaScript loading that goes on. Really, I'm not even talking about the JavaScript that you've written. I'm talking about the libraries and stuff that you're loading at. jQuery and jQuery UI. Now, if you're doing stuff on mobile and you're doing stuff thinking about mobile first, there's a good chance that a lot of what you're doing with jQuery could be replaced with things like Zepto. There's other micro frameworks, but I would really seriously look at micro frameworks. Another thing that has become sort of a best practice, although I hate that term, I hear this question from people that do a lot of mapping work like I do. Why does my map page not load fast enough? Yeah, that's because you're loading all your JavaScript up in your head element, and nothing renders until some of that is done. Now we're starting to get into the pattern of loading our JavaScript at the bottom of the page, at the very bottom of your body element. That at least gives some of the visual indications to people that the page is loading, instead of just the blank stare that drives people nuts and makes them throw their phone after 5 seconds. If they see something happen, well, it's not like the page is actually loading faster here. It's all gonna load, about the same time in the end. It's just people see progress, and that makes them perceive that your site is faster. And perception is what you're after on speed. Another problem is bloated CSS files. And again, I'm going to talk about the files, the CSS files in projects that have been around, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, where the designers did a great job when the application was built 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago. But since then, the developers have been hacking at the CSS. Yeah, they go in there to add something or to change something, and they're not really sure. Maybe they'll break something. Maybe when they make that change, they'll break something, and they don't think their design chops are up to handling that, so they just add stuff, because that's easy to do. Well, that gives you a lot of bloat that you're carrying around. Another problem is images, and we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg here. I know that image loading is a big thing, but just wait until everybody starts putting up those images that are optimized for the iPad Retina display. They're huge, guys, and they're going to slow down load time even more. But hey, wait, JavaScript, CSS, images? We kind of have a solution for that in Rails already. It's called the asset pipeline. Works for me. My app's Rails 3.1. What about all the ones that came before? What about all those apps that are pre-Rails 3.1? Again, okay, who's got an app out there pre-asset pipeline? Yeah, way more than half now. So maybe you want to think about upgrading your apps. Maybe you can use this as that one more argument you need to convince your customer or the boss that that upgrade is actually a worthwhile thing. So once we get past all the too slow, didn't wait sort of things, we have all the different landing strategies that people use for mobile. And these are all just sort of things that people have done on the fly to adjust to the new mobile reality. Flash only. Those are my favorite sites. Aren't they yours? Where you go there to a site and you can't do anything with it because it was built entirely with Flash. Now, the sad fact is Flash is dead on mobile. I know, for a while it looked like it was going to have some legs with Android supporting it and all, but that's slowly going down. So Flash is not going to be an option in the long run. So you're going to have to deal with these sites, and you can do what other developers do, like these guys. This is a restaurant site called Dairy Treats. They do nothing. So this is what you see. A blank screen with nothing. That's good for your customers, right? Or, you can just give them confusing information that makes no sense and do nothing. Or one of my favorites, I'm not sure if you can read, this page actually looks okay, but it's definitely one of the ones that bothers me. This is the one where it says, you are viewing this page because the computer or device you are using does not have the Adobe Flash plugin. Click here to install it. That's really useful for your average Joe user too. Or, hey, why don't you just insult them? That always works. That'll gain you new customers. I don't even know what this guy was thinking. Okay, here's one. That's a nice mobile device you have. Unfortunately, you can't view your digital edition on this particular mobile device. Now, really, none of these are great options, but don't you think this is a better way than this one? It took about the same amount of time to do both of these. So, you have choices. I would say that given the laughter, and by the way, this was a screen capture that my husband took, and he laughed too when he hit this site. I think laughter is a better response than rage. So go with laughter. It works. Leaving the Flash stuff behind us, because Flash is gone. Let's move on to more of the sort of do-nothing landing strategies. The option that probably causes the least amount of rage is full site, Don't do anything, just let it stand on its own. A lot of the web browsers on the mobile devices can handle this, pretty well. That's what they did. When the iPhone first came out, when the iPad first came out, nobody was optimizing for mobile. Nobody was even thinking about it. But the browser kind of has some nice features and helps you. So this is probably actually the least rage-inducing option, I'm sad to say. Next up is the Forestry Direct, where people will have a little bit of JavaScript on that home page that determines that your mobile device is not worthy of seeing the full site and dumps you over into the mobile site. Now, this is actually bad enough on the home page, but when you actually have a link to some specific content and you get redirected to the mobile site, that can cause all sorts of problems, including one of my favorites where you just get dumped to the mobile homepage instead of the content that you wanted to see. There's also the mobile walled garden. This is sort of a follow-on of the mobile redirect. So already sort of, aggravated by the fact that you couldn't get into the full site, you get redirected to the limited function mobile site because, they couldn't be bothered to give you the full function. And not only that, but you can't get back to the full site because they haven't given you a link to it. That's really, really aggravating. Or, even worse, how about when the mobile detection fails? I'm sure none of you have ever seen this. Not. This is the Calgary Herald, but it could be one of any number of web applications, especially news sites are particularly bad at this, where they just went and detected mobile Safari and decided, you're an iPhone, and gave me the iPhone site. Okay, maybe not that aggravating, only this site actually works on my iPhone, but it doesn't work on my iPad. It won't let me scroll. And I know on the iPhone that if I scroll down at the very bottom of the page, there is a full site link, and I can't get there. Okay, so moving right along, how about we don't handle mobile devices at all in our web application? Let's just, let's have an app for that, because that's what people do. Well, that causes its own kind of rage. Not everybody wants to install a specific app for every single site that they go to, and especially not for the sites that they don't go to very often. I know I don't. I don't want the Dig app either. I don't want the IMDb app. I do look things up there every once in a while. But every time I go there, there's this pop-up that goes, you should have our app. And it irritates me that they ask me that every time. Why can't you just, save that as a default? I made the choice. No, I don't want your stinking app. And remember that. Use a cookie, for crying out loud. Okay. Gee, maybe I should have had some calm down screens like Sarah had in her talk. But advertising is the second of our problem areas. Now, we know as consumers of web content that ads are irritating. But as web application developers, we know that there's money to be made in advertising, so we do it anyway. But since advertising is actually kind of annoying to your users to begin with, maybe if you're going to do it, you should do it right and not in a way that irritates people. For example, one of my faves, the Popover, the Lightbox. I never actually liked these on the desktop, but on mobile, they're even worse. One, links are too small to click on. If I've already zoomed into some content on this page and the pop-up comes up, I can practically guarantee that there's no way I'm going to be able to close this pop-up without accidentally clicking on it and navigating away from the page that I actually wanted to read. Now, there's an even sort of worse version of this. Used to be on the National Geographic site. They had the Lightbox from hell. This is the Lightbox that came up, and it actually was too large to display even on my iPad screen. It was beyond the bounds. So I would grab a hold of this Lightbox and drag and try to, get to that corner where I could close it. But just before I'd click, that JavaScript code that recentered would kick in and move the close button away and off screen again. But when I tried to take a screenshot of this, I couldn't find it. They fixed it. Oh well. Oh wait, yay, they fixed it. So, yay, National Geographic did good. I don't know a lot of options for using these, but the one that comes to mind and that I've used instead of Lightboxes is a redirect. So instead of having this popover annoying thing, you instead have this annoying redirect to an advertising page with a nice little countdown timer on it that after you've stared at this ad for X number of seconds, you'll actually get to go and see the content they actually wanted to. Now, yes, that's irritating, but it's not as irritating as those Lightboxes. Okay, navigation. So I think with all the studies that go into user experience and everything, you understand that navigation in your web application is really important. Because once you have people there on your site, you want to keep them. So you want to encourage them to explore and navigate around in your application. I have to tell you guys, size matters here. On mobile, the size of the links and buttons can make a huge, huge difference in the usability of your application. Those wee, tiny little buttons that I was just talking about on the Lightboxes, those suck on the mobile devices because the targets are just too small for fingers. And spacing matters too. All too often, when we're designing our applications, we try and cram as much information as possible onto the screen. Sometimes at the expense of, usability. I'll have to show you an example of my app now. Now here was, a perfectly good list of things to select from. This is a web application that's used to search for wells. And you can search by any number of criteria. And you can select these. And when you're on your desktop and you're clicking on those links, the fact that these are all jammed together doesn't really make much of a difference. But when the iPad first came out, and yeah, I was in Canada, so I didn't actually get my hands on one, but I was told that a company in the States was going to demo our application to their board of directors on an iPad in 1 week. I kind of had to, very quickly make some adjustments to the application. And the first thing was to adjust some of the size and spacing. Adjusting the size of these accordion headers that we were using made them more touchable, and adjusting the spacing between all these links made sure that people weren't accidentally clicking on something that they didn't mean to click on. So how much spacing and padding do you need? The Apple Human Interface guidelines are actually great, and you should go and read them anyway. But I find that a really good visual example is much more helpful. So I use this little app called PhoneFinger. Is anybody here familiar with PhoneFinger? Oh, novices, great. Okay, PhoneFinger, it's a little app, it's free, and if you ever are testing out your web application using the iPhone and iPad simulators on your computer, use PhoneFinger. Because what it does is it changes your little tiny cursor into a big fat finger. And then you try and use your application on the simulator. Yeah, you get to see exactly what it's like to have a big fat finger obscuring parts of your app as it moves around. That's not something that you can get by just blinking around with your regular cursor. So I think that if you haven't tried it, I recommend that you download that app because it's kind of cool. Okay, last but not least, forms. This is one of my personal pet peeves, form entry on mobile. I could probably go on for hours about how irritating form entry on mobile is, but we don't have that much time left, so let's just concentrate on sort of the basics that most web applications have to deal with. Sign in, sign up, profile editing. I think most applications have stuff like that. Believe me, there's more than enough rage-worthy examples just there. So starting with sign in. Most services these days let you use an email address as your account identifier. But how many of those services actually take advantage of the mobile convenience known as the custom keyboard? Let's see. Google, fail. Facebook, win. They've got the custom keyboard there. Great. Oh, oops. On the iPad, they failed. What? But don't worry, because, other iPad guys fail too. There's Eventbrite. They don't. Twitter, fail. WordPress, fail. This is getting kind of sad. Yahoo, fail. Microsoft Windows Live, win. They do it right. Amazon, win. They do it right. And that last one, I know is kind of difficult to read, but that's the Apple Store, fail? What? Didn't they pioneer this stuff? What the hell? Okay, that's just sad. And you know what's even sadder? This is all you have to do to fix it. instead of using a text field, use an email field. We've had this stuff since Rails 2, people. Let's use it. So sign-up forms. Now, I have a nice little anecdote here because I'd already decided I was going to give this talk, and this just sort of happened. So I sort of recorded this live. Somebody on Twitter said, "Ooh, you should use this new service, iDrive Pro." So it's just like, okay, let's go in and let's start to sign up for this. The color's not too good there, but I've entered in my first name and my last name, and now I'm on the username field, and the keyboard is auto-capitalizing on me. You know what? I don't want that field auto-capitalized. And then I start typing, and it's auto-correcting on me. And I don't want it to do that either. And then, of course, there's the next field, the email address. And no, they don't have the custom email keyboard. Oh, and yeah, there's autocomplete again, and it's going to give me, you know, a capitalized Lori, and I don't want that as my email address either. Okay, but you know it's over now, right? No, now they're complaining about the password that I chose. Fine. I give up, you win. No, actually, you lose. Because I never actually finished signing up for this site, because I was just getting too irritated by how annoying the sign-up form was. So how many customers do people lose on their sign-up forms by irritating them over and over and over? And again, nice simple fixes. If you want to turn off autocomplete or auto-capitalize, you can just pass these in to your text field, and they'll be turned off. Although I understand that it's possible on some Firefox browsers that autocomplete on the field level doesn't work, so you can actually put autocomplete on your form level, and that will help. So user profile editing. Now, a lot of the stuff that we just went through when you sign up, that is pretty much your profile. But, you know, you can go back in and edit stuff. Edit stuff like, hey, URLs, right? Hey, Twitter, I'm entering in my home page address, not with the custom URL keyboard. Thanks. That's helpful. Again, nice, simple fix. Why don't we do it? And how about numbers? When you're entering in phone numbers, everybody knows how to use the keypad for number entry, but we don't get that, and I'm not going to do any more examples because, yeah, the rage is growing. But here's the nice, simple fix for that, too. Again, all this stuff has been available for ever and ever in Rails. You should be using it. So, in retrospect, the fact is there will be more and more mobile users. You will have more mobile users than not sooner than you think. Heck, depending on what application you have, you may have more mobile users than not right now. These older applications that don't behave properly, or heck, new applications where people just aren't thinking about mobile, they are causing a lot of rage. Applications that induce rage are not good for your bottom line. I think we can all agree on that. And if you can't go back and rewrite and do mobile first and responsive design and fix all this stuff, at least go back and do all these little things, because they don't take very long, and they'll make your users so much happier. And you know, maybe they'll make Gorby Puff happier too, because Gorby Puff wants you to do this. Okay, thanks. So that's about it.